Thanks everyone for staying with us. It is exactly 32 years after the controversial annulment of the June 12, 1993 presidential election. Now, Nigeria's former head of state, Ibrahim Babangida, is admitting for the first time that the late democracy hero, Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola, MKO, won the election. Now, that startling revelation was contained in Mr. Babangida's 420-page memoir titled A Journey in Service, an autobiography of Ibrahim Babangida, which was launched in Abuja yesterday. And the book reviewer, former Vice President Yemi Oshibajo, said the evil genius and Maradona, as Babangida was nicknamed, answered the question as to whether Abiola won the June 12th election or not in his book. Babangida in the book said, quotes, "Although I am on record to have stated after the election that Abiola may not have won the election, upon further reflection and closer examination of all available facts, particularly the detailed election results which are published as an appendix of this book, there was no doubt that MKO Abiola won the June 12 elections," Babangida admitted in his book.
Upon closer examination of the original collated figure from the 110,000 polling booths nationwide, it was clear that he satisfied the two main requirements for winning the presidential election, mainly majority votes and geographical spread, having obtained 8,128,720 votes against Tophers, who polled 5,848,247 votes, and securing the mandatory of 1/3 of the votes cast in 28 states of the Federation, including Abuja, end of quote. During his address, Babangida, famously known as IBB, told the gathering that the annulment of the poll was in extreme national interest. He also stated that, and I quote, "As the leader of the military administration, I accept full responsibility for all decisions taken by me, and June 12 happened under my watch. Mistakes, oversights, and missteps happen in quick succession. But I say in my book, in all matters, we acted in extreme national interest so that Nigeria could survive," end of quote. For more on this revelation by the former head of state, we have in the studio the son of the late democracy hero, Abdulmumin Abiola. Thank you for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you. Well, finally, 32 years after June 12, General Ibrahim Babangida openly admits that Chief MKO Abiola, won the June 12 election. He also takes full responsibility of the event leading to the annulment. What sort of closure does this give your family, the family of Chief MKO Abiola?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. I think this is obviously an historic moment in the history of Nigeria. The first part of what you said was acknowledging that Abiola won the 1993 elections. I was about, I think, 8 years old in 1993. Yeah. I knew my father won, and I was only 8. I think everybody who was around at that time would have felt the outpouring of joy in people's voices. I think we had the option A4. It wasn't like what we have today with like 90-something political parties. There were only 2 parties. You lined up behind your candidates. So before anybody had to count, you already knew who won. And I think it was already clear before. You didn't necessarily need to see the remaining results to know that Abiola had won. So for me, and for people who were supporting my father during that time, knew that Abiola had won that election. The part that I took to heart was his acknowledgement that he felt remorse for that action, because I think that was it was a tragic moment for not just the Abiola family, but for Nigeria as a whole. And for him to acknowledge that he felt he had remorse for the actions he took, and he even went further to say that if he was given an opportunity, he would take different decision, a different path. And I think, it's human to err, and if you know anything about this event, it's 32 years after, it's human to err. And for me, I think it's, the closure part is, it lays that matter to rest. Although everybody had the inclination that Abiola had won, it was never really announced. And he was the head of the government at the time. So this was a good time for him to put that matter to rest. For those who still were maybe on the fence to say, oh, maybe he won, maybe he didn't win, but now I think it's clear that he won. I think what we need to do is, Abiola was a messenger, but he also had a message. And I think it was the message that got him that election. He won that election for him. So Abiola didn't vote for himself. 8 million people voted for him, right? So he must have expressed a vision to the people, for them to give him their mandate. And I think that was what Nigeria, that's what we missed out on, is that unity that was forged in that 1993 election.
So does this give the family closure?
First of all, I'm Abiola, and my father has a big family, so I don't know if this alone gives a closure. Like a couple years ago, the former president, General Muhammad Buhari, he actually acknowledged my father and awarded him GCFR. I think sometimes, with Babangida now actually, saying that this was the man who won, I think what we need to now start thinking about is, one, like I said, the country was, traumatized. The Abiola family was shattered during that whole period. I remember that after the annulment, my dad was going out trying to fight for his mandate, and then he subsequently gets arrested, imprisoned, and then later dies. My mom, once he was in prison, my mom, Kudras Abiola, came out to fight, to say, look, enough is enough. Let's do the things the right way. That way we can move forward. And she subsequently lost her life in that struggle. So, for me, I don't dwell on the past. I think it's most important that we focus on the future. And for me, the messenger is not here, but the message is still relevant, it still is sustainable. And I think what we need to understand about that message was Nigeria for all. Nigeria that was not defined by our ethnic divisions, but by what brings us together, which is a common future. And I think that was what is most important. So for me, I acknowledge what the former head of state said about my father. Like I said, I knew this to be true. I'm just happy that he has come out to express his remorse about this. And like I said, as a Muslim, I believe that Allah decides all these things. So, like he has said what he has said. For me, I'm just trying to see how we can move Nigeria to a place where my father will be pleased to see. So it's not just about words, it's more about action now.
We'll still discuss on this, but let's take a quick listen to this clip.
Free and fair elections were held on June 12, 1993. However, the tragic irony of history remains that the administration that devised a near-perfect electoral system and conducted those near-perfect elections could not complete the process. That accident of history is most regrettable. The nation is entitled to expect my impression of regret. As the leader of the military administration, I accept full responsibility for all decisions taken under my watch.
Yeah, welcome back. Now, if you just been listening to us, we've been speaking with Abdulmumin, Abiola's son of the former president. That was the voice of the former military president of Nigeria, General Ibrahim Babangida, admitting his role in the annulment of the June 12 election. Now, Abdulmumin, we left off talking about, you said that the nation would need to move forward. Now, that was a halting stage. That was supposed to be a healing stage. Now, with what IBB has just admitted, it ought to help propel us into the healing stage. And I think one of the major problems we do have is we emphasize some of the things that divide us, which that election, June 12 election, was kind of a watershed because he was accepted in military barracks, he was accepted in the north, he was accepted in the east, in the south, and the southwest. Now, as a people, listening to what IBB has said, how do we begin this pushing ourselves forward to rebuild the nation to reflect the kind of dream Abiola had?
Well, it's like I said, democracy, would only work if we engage with it, if we participate in a democracy. I think that's the core of my father's vision for Nigeria. He wanted to let Nigerian people know that the power was vested in them. Like I said, Abiola was the forefront, but there were millions of Nigerians who supported his ideas and his vision. In leadership, what you need to do as a leader, you don't necessarily need to move the whole table, but you need to convey the message that the table will look better on the other side of the room. But the way you convey that message is what is going to galvanize the people to do what they need to do, because the Nigerian people are the ones that are going to pick up the nation from where we are. So I think it's important that we understand the roles that we all play in this democracy and everything. There's a role for leadership, but there's also a role for people to participate into it, because the more people that are involved, the stronger and the stronger you, because then you have like a collective of people working in the same direction. I think that's the most important thing. So for me, with Babangida's acknowledgement, even before his acknowledgement, I already knew my father had won, and I was working towards how we can make Nigeria a better place. And I believe that even His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, if when he decided to run for presidency, his campaign manifesto was on renewed hope. There's the foundation of a renewed hope would have only come from hope, which was in 1993. So, and he was also a pivotal member of that struggle too. So I'm sure as we move forward, knowing that Nigeria belongs to all of us, we can all talk about how this happened, but that does not change our present situation. What we need to now look at is how we can say, yes, this had happened. We acknowledge it, but we don't dwell on it, and we use that energy to push us forward. There's something that my sister Hafsat said when I spoke to her yesterday about this whole event. And she said, if my father was hope, my mother was the embodiment of courage. So, and these are both bloods run through me. And so I for one I don't give up. I don't believe in that give up mentality. And I think my father also objectified that whole idea of, if you know you're right, you keep pushing. And I think what we need to now do is encourage ourselves to get up. I know that things that might be a little bit shaky at the moment, but we need to think about a future that is bright but is inclusive. So the only way that can happen is if we're all on the same page. So yes, I think it's most important that in moving forward, we need to understand our agency in this whole affair of Nigeria. It is not only for Asiwaju or for the leaders or the senator. It's also for the people who are in those areas that are being affected. And they need to also be able to interact with their leaders to let them know how they feel. I think democracy is not a destination, it's a journey. And if it's going to take us 32 years to get to where we need to get to, alhamdulillah. Because in America, it took them almost 200 years to get to where they are. And look at America today. So I think they still have a lot of work to do. So let's not look at it as a destination, let's look at it as a journey. And how do we engage with government in a way that it becomes a public good and everybody can benefit from it. And I think that's what my father was trying to get across. It wasn't about Abiola. Abiola really never thought he looked at it, Babangida, he's my friend. He was so, he probably didn't even expect what was going to happen. Nobody goes into something like this thinking this was going to happen. He thought, reason would prevail. But yeah, sometimes it takes a while for you to understand the consequences of decisions that are made. But notwithstanding, as a human, you can make errors. I don't like dwelling on the past, because if I would start looking back, like I said, when I thought this wasn't that serious until at night when I was by myself, and then I started crying. Wow. I just started thinking about every family that lost limbs, people in Nigeria who I never knew, who I've met over the time, who told me, my leg, during the Jutsu struggle. There was a traumatic event that even if you don't have a physical injury, there were some emotional scars that came with that whole saga of the other head of state, Abacha, and then the brain drain, people who felt that Nigeria will never get better and just left the country and are now doing excellent in other countries where we need those people here. So what I think is most important is we, as a people, and as a people who understand that whatever is good for me is also good for you. It's like, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. Well, I'm not trying to, this world is so large that we need to understand that we are not all going to be here at the same time. And we're looking to make it a better place for my children. So I'm fighting for my father, but now that he has been acknowledged, I'm now fighting for my child to see what I will leave for him. And I think that's most important.
Wow. Well, Beyond the acknowledgement that your father won that election, some people have also said that there should be compensation for your family considering the financial loss suffered after his death. Can you quantify the loss and what kind of compensation will be enough?
See, the conversation around compensation, okay, it can go in two ways. You know, after the annulment of the elections, you know, my father's businesses were strategically targeted and destroyed, basically, driven to the ground. And then it was also compounded by my mom's escapades. I don't want to get into all that. But I think what we need to understand now that if we were to say that he won the election, then he now became president-elect. Now, if we were also to now look at it and say, okay, did he die before he would have been sworn in as president? No, he would have lived like another 4 years before he died. So he would have actually done maybe his first term. So we can say he was actually the president of the nation. Now, in that point, you know, he ceased to be my father. He now became the nation, the father of the nation. And at that point, so I think, for me, the states knows what they do. I don't work for the states. There should be, I think, state organs should spring into action, and the needful needs to be done. Like I said, I also am aware that some contracts that were fulfilled by my father before the elections were not subsequently paid. So there's, you know, but these things, like I said, are not my present focus. I think if we're talking about honoring Abiola, we should look at the manifesto and the agenda he had for Nigerians, the plan that he was trying to get across. And I think that's a more enduring way of sustaining such a legacy. You know, Abiola was a champion of sports. You know, he was a pillar of sports. He was a philanthropist. You know, he made sure that like at least 20,000 Nigerians were sent to school through him. You know, and I think the most important thing for us is to understand that he did this, and he was only about 61 before he was arrested and everything. This election was 61, so Daddy started maybe he was 40, and he was like maybe 20-something years or 19 years before this whole thing had gone to the way it went. I just think it's important that we understand that now that he's a father of the nation, his legacy should be protected, his estate should be protected, and you know, so it should not be something that I should talk about. I think this should be something that maybe I'll get a phone call somewhere saying, you know, this is what's happening now, because I think that it's only helps with in moving on, for not just my family, my mom's side of the family, but just all of us in the Abiola family. It was an event that really shattered the core of the family, and we were all fragmented in different countries. And I think recently we just actually started talking and trying to reunite in some form, you know. And I think it's important that even just to preserve such a legacy, it's important that we look at it.
Let's go to another legacy of the June 12 and of MKO Abiola. The legacy that this was a man that was accepted across different geopolitical zones. We didn't look at it whether you are a Muslim or a Christian. And oftentimes we see during political season, you see politicians come to talk about the fault lines. And now we have the leaders in there. If you look at the table at that book presentation, you see all the former leaders seated in there. I think there was just one that was not physically present in there. Now it speaks volume. But let's speak about the Nigerian people, because you can't divide us if the people do not accept to be divided. As a people, what message should we begin to look at in the legacy of this man that look in June 12, Nigerians do not look at themselves as a Yoruba man or as an Hausa man. They looked at themselves as Nigerians, and they ensured that, look, we voted as Nigerians for a better tomorrow.
Okay, like let me take you back in time. You know, I think Abiola was not just a president for that election. He had been working tirelessly across Nigeria. You know, the same way he gave to the mosques, he gave to the church. You know, and the times were totally different. We have to put everything into the right perspective. The times were totally different. There, Nigeria was maybe about 120 million people, give or take. We were not as everybody at the time. We had a military government, and we were looking to oust the military from power. We had a collective goal. You know, at that point. You know, and then you fast forward 25 years of uninterrupted democracy, where subsequent leaders have promised yet, fell short. When I saw the picture of all the leaders sitting there, I said to myself, we are not really that divided. We're not really that divided.
Word of mouth.
This is more. It's maybe the masses are divided, but the elites are united. So I think it should be the other way around. It should be the masses are united while the elite, because if a small group of people are seeing eye to eye and nobody is telling each other the truth, it is easier. The masses need to take up that unity, and the only way we can do that is understand that we are our brother's keepers. And I think over time we have lost that. Over time, we've left tradition and we've adopted, Western, thoughts and attributes. These things also have also made some fractures, because now, I remember when I was in the United States, it's a country of individuality. It's who am I? Nobody thinks of the collective. It's not necessarily a collective thought process in that way. So I think, but Africa is not like this. Africa is a place where if you don't have, you can talk to your neighbor. Back when I was a kid, I knew all the neighbors in the MK Abiola Crusade. So we played on the soccer, we played together. Now it's different. People are in the houses, nobody is interacting with each other. And I think when you don't interact with yourselves, you don't get to know yourselves. And if you don't know yourselves, you can't really support each other. And I think that's most important. We need to, first of all, coalesce around each other, understand that we have that power. Like, you understand, the elections that we had, we were like, I think 100, we had 100 million people with voters' cards. The total voter turnout was about 20 million. This does not bode well for a country who is promoting inclusivity and proper democracy. I would have loved to see maybe a 60% turnout. We had like 60 million people vote. Then whoever won that election would have,
the
massive support that is necessary in any endeavor. I think it's important. So I think my encouragement or my advice would be, let's talk to each other. Like, my generation, I don't think we even see region. I have one of my best friends is from Southeast, but I don't even know him. He's my best friend. That's what he's Nigerian. As long as you're Nigerian, it's okay. Alhamdulillah, as far as I'm concerned. So I think this division is more of an era thing, and that's my father were to be here today. We'll probably be arguing every day, because I'm like, this man is too old. His ideas are, So I think what we need to do is try to see how the youth can coalesce around each other. We have some shining lights amongst ourselves that we can promote, and if we do that in a way that is inclusive, that we're encouraging true transparency. We've seen movements that young people have come up with that has shown that that if we are ready to take up that mantle, most of those leaders you saw at that table were basically our ages when they started becoming leaders. So I don't know why I cannot, or my brother Ifai cannot, or my brother Emeka, or anybody in Nigeria who believes in the brightness and the joy of this nation. You have to understand that Nigeria is a beautiful country, no matter how you want to put it. With everything that has happened in my life, I don't think I would change the nation I'm from, because everywhere I go, the outpouring of love, the joy, even in the midst of true hardship. And if my father was saying farewell to poverty in 1993, what do you think he'll be saying in 2023? So I think we need to see how we can collectively lift each other up. And that's the best way to do this.
Well, your father's campaign slogan in 1993, like you said, was hope and an end to poverty. 30 years later, President Bola Tinubu campaigned with the slogan renewed hope and won the election just like your father. How would you say the administration is keeping that legacy alive and implementing policies that align with your father's ideologies?
I'll say that His Excellency, first of all, had, like I said, there were two different times. What His Excellency met on the table would have probably been different from what my father would have met. So I think that so the strategies will probably be skewed based on the realities at the moment, the situational awareness and everything. So for me, I'll first of all say that I support the majority of Shiwaju's reforms and interventions, like especially in the tax in the tax reforms. This is something that when I read it, I felt that this was something that would help the poor and the less trodden, and even encourage them to even, based on that relief, they could, sometime come out of that, of the present situation they're in. So I'm encouraged by some of the decisions that I've seen made. I can say that, His Excellency is somebody that he's moving very fast. And when you move very fast, the shock any shock would resonate more. So I think that's what we're perceiving now. But I think as time is going, as we see, I've heard even the agricultural minister talk about the moves that they're making in agriculture to bring down inflation. So I'm sure that with time and with support from the Nigerian people, it might also go a longer way to get us where we are. Like I for one, believe in supporting who is there, because His Excellency succeeds, I succeed, because I'm a beneficiary from whatever programs he's doing. So I'm working towards seeing how I can be part of that movement in any way. I think that's my core. I don't want to question it, because I think that in Nigeria you can't really take your time with certain things. You have to just drop it and let everything settle. Because if you take your time, you can have people come and tell you the reasons why you shouldn't do certain stuff. So, but I for one, I think that inshallah, with some of the steps that have been made in the nearest future, we'll start to see the dividends, and then some of the initiatives in the school, they paying for students to go to university. These things will also be would also help, especially to alleviate some of the pressures on some of those that don't have enough funds to do those things. So like I said, there's no perfect government. The idea is that if anybody in Nigeria has a better solution, they should proffer that idea, because it's for the general good of the nation. And I think opposition parties should also provide solutions to the current situation in the country. And when it comes time for election, we can campaign. But now it's governance, and I think we should give him his time to govern. And inshallah, maybe what my father could not do, Shiwaju in his time, because he was also a key member of that struggle. He should maybe be able to achieve to a certain level, and maybe pass on to another pro-democratic and progressive minded individual to move us forward. Like I said, democracy is not a destination; it's a journey, and we have to keep working at it. But it also takes a collective effort between both the Nigerian citizens and the leadership as well.
Yeah. Talking about preserving legacies, after your father's death, some of your siblings have ventured into politics, and particularly your eldest brother, who was unsuccessful in his attempt to run for presidency. As an offspring of Chief MKO Abiola, would you also consider going into politics as a way of keeping your father's legacies alive?
First of all, my father's legacy he has been able to keep it by himself. Nobody needs to help Abiola keep his legacy. I need to make a name for myself. So for me, I grew up in a family that believed in service and believed in the country. And the sacrifices that I alluded to earlier are something, it only gives me more drive to be part of it in any way. I don't see a situation where I for one believe I'm a leader to be from the get. So I don't need a position to help, to make me make decisions to help Nigerians. I think what is important, what we need to do is see how we can support each other, like I said. So I've been trying to do that in my own little way. But if there's ever an opportunity for me to ever serve Nigeria as a public servant, I think it's not only a privilege, it will be an honor.
All right, if you can hold your thoughts on that, we'll have to take this quick commercial break again. Don't go anywhere. We have more for you on the program. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Life is politics. In Nigeria, almost every part of our lives is touched by the politics we play. Governance, legislative matters, the economy, security, foreign affairs, internal affairs. Have a feel as strategic plays in the political space determine how we live in Nigeria. The players, the drama, chess piece moves.
If you want to become something, become a child again. Why be a patient? If you must worry, then worry about winning. Why worry about germs? When you come home, bring tales and stories. Why bring in germs?
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
Matters: the economy, security, foreign affairs, internal affairs. Have a feel as strategic plays in the political space determine how we live in Nigeria. The players, the drama, chess piece moves. Be kept informed. Watch analysis of major happenings in the political space.
We're glad to have you back. We still have with us in the studio Abdulmumi Abiola, and we're still talking about the recent comments by the General Ibrahim Babangida. Now, you're talking about, maybe your plans or no plans to venture into politics, so I want to hear that.
No, okay. Basically, it's for me. Like I said, I grew up in a family that believed that the highest honor would be to serve your nation. I don't know if there's any. I don't have any other country. Nigeria is where I was born and is where I would have to serve. So I would be honored, and it would be a privilege to be part of the Nigerian story of moving us from where we are to a place where my father would look back and say, yes, his sacrifice wasn't in vain. I think it's important that the promises that my father could not keep should be kept by his children in some way, shape, or form.
So, are we going to see you? You have not answered that question.
Well,
you see,
like I said, when people ask me this question, I always say I was born into politics. But the idea for me is, if I'm given an opportunity to serve, I'll be honored to do so.
All right.
Okay. Let's take a look at the youth population, because you're a young man also, and we'll be talking about the youth participation. There was a time the slogan was "not too young to run." And some Nigerians have said that, okay, the youth are also involved in some of these vices that is pulling us back as a nation. Now, I want you to give an assessment of the youth population.
Okay, let me start with, yes, they said not too young to run, but then they didn't say not too poor to run. I think the idea was, yes, we were giving the right to run, but sometimes some of the parties that were leading at the time, the fees for some of the applications were, frankly, extravagant. It was just too high for those who were legitimately trying to get into, trying to serve, to be able to do it. So, like, the idea for me would be, you've mentioned the population, the youth population, and I think that's key. Nigeria is a country of the youth. I don't know if I can consider myself youth. I'm just 40 now, so I don't know if I'm still youth, but if I am,
still a young man.
We are at the table. I use the analogy that we are at the table. I'm a young man because I don't have facial hair. I've tried everything. It's not coming. Because why? Because I've tried. I put spirits. It doesn't come. So, but if I had, I'm sure you'll see that.
Talk to me after that.
Yeah, I will. So, like I said, that the youth, we are at the table. So for me, when I even heard this whole thing that the fees are too high, I said, well, if we were to create a youth-centered party of sorts, and we were to make it truly democratic from source, so the party itself was democratic. So I am Abiola, but I pay 100 naira, and I was able to get 20 million young Nigerians to pay the same 100 naira. Do the math, you have like 2 billion a month, and that's just fees.
Just let me quickly break this in. Is it about the fee to run or the preparedness of these young people? They're not even prepared for it. They just want a position.
You see, first of all, when the leaders that were around the round table yesterday were there, they were all leaders in their 30s, 20s, and they were not necessarily prepared for it, but they were thrust to that position, and then they made mistakes going along. I think it's our time as young Nigerians to make our own mistakes. Right. Even if we are not ready, let's even go there and make our own. So that way, when our children ask us what would happen, we said, you two go make your own mistake. Because like I said, the problems my father will create in his own lifetime will only be solved by his children. You can't be the one doing something and repairing at the same time. It doesn't work. You know, so I think the most important thing is we need to understand that we are at the table, and once we take that up, Nigeria would.
I totally agree with you on that. Thank you so much for your time with us on the program, Abiola. It was good talking to you, and you know, good reminiscing on the old times and you know how it has influenced present day happenings. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having
on the
me.
program. That's our offering from us here in Abuja. It's back to you in Lagos, Veronica and Ibrahim.